Let's talk about peer review. You may be thinking, what's the point of peer review when all you've ever received are comments like the ones popping up on the screen when what you really desired is constructive feedback? Well, as we know, writing is a process. We are constantly revising, be it at the brainstorming stages or right before turning in our final drafts. Peer review plays a large part in the revision of our writing, and the feedback we receive help us grow as writers. Many of us even search for feedback from our friends, family, tutors, and instructors. So if we go into a peer review session knowing how to contribute and interpret the feedback we receive, then it's possible that peer review can turn into one of the most helpful places when it comes to writing. So you might be surprised to know that there are actually different faces to peer review. We just might not say it's peer review. So of course in the classroom setting, we're going to be most likely paired up or sitting in a circle and passing around our papers to get that feedback. Or if we're in a virtual class, we might be utilizing Canvas, Google Docs, or email to get that peer review feedback. However, you might be surprised to know that we engage in peer review behavior more often than you think. Because after all, peer review is just when we review another person's work and provide some feedback. So scrolling through the comments on our social media feeds, looking at Yelp or the internet platforms we shop and browse through, we take advantage of the feedback that others have left, especially when buying products or deciding on a good place to eat. Of course, on the internet, people can be a bit harsh, and we don't want to reflect that behavior during peer review. But there are some characteristics that are worth keeping, like explaining in depth how your dining experience was bad or why a face product is worth buying. We are now going to go over some tips for giving productive peer review feedback during these sessions. But first, we need to establish that writing you're about to comment on is from a real person with real feelings. We can't be that harsh Yelp reviewer. Well, we can, but that wouldn't be very productive for this peer review experience. We want to give a mixture of positive and critical comments so that the people who read the feedback can get a sense of what they're doing well and what they need to improve on. So looking at this chart, on the left, we're going to have a list of positive things that we should be doing during peer review, as opposed to the right, where we have negative things that we shouldn't be doing, like speeding through someone's writing or acting like you're in charge of grammar and spelling and just correcting everything that you see with your red pen. So looking at the positive side, the first thing I really want to talk about is how we need to consider the current writing process stage that piece of writing is in when we enter peer review. This is because we can kind of view revision as a hierarchy. So we draw this little pyramid up, draw some lines so we have some levels. At the top, we're going to have spelling and grammar. And then at the bottom, we're going to have our thesis, ideas, making sure our ideas have support, whereas our research are things making sense. So during the first peer review session, we're going to be focused on the bottom. Now, as we move through revision and peer review sessions, we're working our way up the pyramid. So during these first sessions, we're just kind of looking at the ideas. Does it make sense? Is it following the teacher's prompt? Are they hitting what needs to be there? And then right before we turn in that final draft, we're going to be focusing more so on spelling and grammar. This is mainly because during peer review, it's not up to you to edit everything for that person. And honestly, as someone goes through their revision process, they're going to be editing things, and it's not worth harping on commas and spelling when that sentence might not even be there in the final product. So going back to our chart, the one thing I really want to point out is that you need to be super specific with your comments. You can't just say good job or this sentence needs to be fixed. Tell me the why behind it. Think back to those Yelp reviews. Why do we like certain reviews over others? And try to reflect that behavior. The last thing I want to say on this slide is that it's really helpful, in my opinion, to leave a sentence or two at the end of your commenting, just kind of summarizing what you're saying. So that person can look quickly and kind of be like, okay, so this is what I did well, this is what I need to work on, and they can look through their paper then and know what's going on and not be super overwhelmed. So finally, we're going to go over some tips for what you can do when you receive those comments from your peers. So same kind of idea with the chart, but one thing I want to point out on the other chart that you saw for when we give, I said look and see if that person left any comments wanting you to focus on something specific. You can take advantage of that too. It's okay for you to be directive about the feedback that you want on your paper. So I encourage you to maybe ask, hey, can you look at my transitions? I'm struggling with it. You need to be taking advantage of this time to really get feedback that's going to help you be successful in this class and with your writing. So you can look through these points, but what I really want to focus on is that last one, revision. So you can use this feedback you get from your peers towards your revision process. That's the whole point. So if you're struggling to kind of figure out what needs to get changed, look and see what your peers commented. The worst thing you can do, you guys, is just ignore what people wrote. You don't have to take everything into consideration and change everything they suggest, but it's helpful to get an idea of what's going on. And it's really a time for you to take advantage of this experience.